Hey there, and welcome. This guide is brought to you by the experts at My Tax Accountant. Today, we're going to talk about something that can really stir up a lot of stress, the DWP Compliance Interview. If you've ever felt that pit in your stomach when an official-looking letter lands on your doormat, then you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to break it all down piece by piece so you can feel prepared and, most importantly, in control.
Right, so you get home, you see that brown envelope from the DWP, and your stomach just does a backflip. It's a feeling a lot of people know, and it's not a nice one. But that initial wave of panic, it doesn't have to define what happens next. Just understanding what's coming is the very first step to getting a handle on the whole situation.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with that moment the letter arrives. Then we'll get you prepped for the interview itself. We'll take a look inside the actual interview, cover your legal rights, check out the possible outcomes, and finally, see how getting professional help can make all the difference. Let's get started. All right, section 1. That letter is the starting gun, isn't it? But knowledge is power. And honestly, the best way to quiet those nerves is to understand exactly what this interview is all about, and maybe even more importantly, why it's happening in the first place. So what even is a DWP compliance interview? Well, think of it less like an interrogation and more like a formal check-in. A customer compliance officer, or CCO, just needs to make sure that all the details on your benefit claim are correct and that your circumstances haven't changed. And this is really important. Getting this letter does not mean you're being accused of doing something wrong. A lot of the time, it's just a routine part of the system.
The big question you're probably asking is, why me? Why now? Well, it usually comes down to a few common triggers. It could be a change in your life that you reported, or maybe one you forgot to. But here's the big one: data mismatches. The DWP and HMRC, the tax office, their computer systems talk to each other. So if the income you've declared to HMRC for tax doesn't quite match what you've told the DWP for your benefits, well, that's a huge red flag for their system. Of course, it could also be a random audit, or sometimes a tip-off.
And if you want to know why these checks have become so much more common, just look at this number. In the 2023 to 2024 financial year, the DWP identified a mind-boggling £8.3 billion in benefit overpayments. Now, that's a mix of actual fraud and genuine, honest mistakes. But when you're dealing with a number that massive, you can see why they're ramping up their compliance checks across the board. They're trying to make sure the right money goes to the right people. Okay, so we know the what and the why. Now, let's get you ready with a proper action plan. This next bit is all about preparation. And this isn't about getting defensive. It's about being organized, feeling confident, and having total command of your own information. Let's do it. Here is your simple 5-step plan to get you interview ready. First up, go through your universal credit journal with a fine-tooth comb. Second, gather all your financial documents, bank statements, invoices, receipts, the whole lot. Third, and this is a big one we'll come back to, you've got to cross-check your info with what HMRC has on you. Fourth, if you're self-employed, get your head around the minimum income floor. And fifth, last but not least, know your rights. That's your safety net. And here is a pro tip that could honestly save you a world of trouble. Before you even think about that interview, go online and log into your HMRC personal tax account. This is your chance to see what they see. Look at the income they have recorded for you. Does it perfectly match what you've been telling the DWP month after month? If there's a difference, you've probably just found the exact reason for the interview, and now you can prepare for that specific question ahead of time. Okay, these numbers are absolutely crucial. They're the bridge between your taxes and your benefits. For this tax year, 2025/26, your personal allowance is £12,570. Now that's what you can earn before paying tax. But, and here's the kicker, you still have to report every penny of it to the DWP. For you self-employed folks, the minimum income floor, or MIF, is a big deal. It's set at roughly £1,250 a month. If your earnings dip below that, the DWP might calculate your benefits as if you did earn it. It's these kinds of details the DWP will be looking at. Right, you've done your homework, you've got your documents in order. Now, let's pull back the curtain and look at the interview itself. Knowing what it feels like, the kinds of questions they're going to ask, and how to frame your answers, that's the key to navigating this with confidence. So what's it actually like? Well, first off, forget any images of a dark room with a single spotlight. Most of these interviews are just a 20 to 40-minute phone call. They'll start by confirming it's you, and then they'll get into the questions. Now, their own training manual describes the questions as robust and challenging. That doesn't mean they're trying to trip you up. It just means they're trained to be very thorough and ask for specifics. So just be ready for that. Let's make this feel real. Let's imagine Aisha, a freelance web developer living in London. She gets the call, and this is one of the first questions she's likely to hear. It sounds straightforward, right? But how she answers this really sets the tone for everything that follows.
So what's a good answer for Aisha? Precision and confidence are her best friends here. A great response would sound something like this. Yes, I'm self-employed. For the last 3 assessment periods, my reported income was £1,400, then £1,650, and £1,200. I have all the corresponding invoices and bank statements right here to verify those amounts, and they match my self-assessment records. See? It's clear, it's factual, and it shouts, I'm organized.
Okay, here's another classic question, especially for freelancers like Aisha. Business expenses. This is a major focus area for them because your expenses directly impact your profit, which is the figure they use to calculate your universal credit payment. They just want to be sure every expense claimed is legit. Again, specifics win the day. An answer like, oh, just the usual business costs, is a red flag. It's not going to work. A much better, much stronger answer is, of course, my total expenses for that period were $800. That broke down into $400 for my essential software subscriptions, $200 on a social media ad campaign, and $200 for office supplies. And yes, I have receipts for every single one of those. That kind of answer just shuts down any follow-up questions. It's perfect. Answering questions is one thing, but you also need to remember that this is not a one-way street. You have protections. So let's move into a really vital area, your legal rights. Knowing these can really empower you and make sure the whole process stays fair and square. Pay close attention here because these are your fundamental rights. You are allowed to ask for an interpreter. You can have someone with you for support, a friend, a family member, or a professional like an accountant. If the appointment time doesn't work, you can ask to rearrange it. You can also record the interview, but you have to get their permission first. And look, if an officer ever comes to your home and you feel uncomfortable for any reason, you have the right to ask them to leave. Simple as that. All right, the interview's done. You hang up the phone, deep breath. So, now what? Let's talk about what happens next, the possible outcomes. And these can really range from, okay, everything's fine, all the way to some pretty serious consequences. So things can go down to very different roads here. On one hand, for a genuine error or an honest mistake, you might get an administrative penalty. That could be a £50 civil fine. The key thing here is it doesn't result in a criminal record. But on the other hand, if the DWP has reason to believe you deliberately gave them false information to get benefits, that can escalate to a fraud prosecution, and that's a whole different ballgame. We're talking a court summons, the potential for a criminal record, and they can even freeze your assets. That line between an honest mistake and deliberate fraud is absolutely everything. Look, I know seeing those potential outcomes can be pretty scary, but I need you to know that you do not have to go through this process on your own. For our last section, let's look at how getting a professional in your corner can completely change the game, using a real-life case study from our team here at My Tax Accountant. I want you to meet Elowen. She's a fantastic freelance florist over in Bristol. Now, Elowen's passion is flowers, not financial spreadsheets. So her bookkeeping was, let's say, a bit chaotic. Receipts stuffed in shoeboxes, you get the picture. The DWP's system flagged a $4,500 difference between the income she'd reported and what their data suggested she'd earned. To say she was panicking would be an understatement. Based on their initial look, the DWP hit Elowen with a potential overpayment demand for this amount, £2,800. Now, for a small business owner, a sudden demand like that isn't just a bill, it's a full-blown crisis. It's the kind of thing that can put your whole business at risk and cause a lot of sleepless nights. And this is where getting expert help changed everything for her. The team at My Tax Accountant got to work. They didn't just give her advice, they literally sat down and reconstructed her entire year's finances from those shoeboxes. They found and validated every single legitimate business expense she'd missed. Then they negotiated directly with the DWP on her behalf. And the result? That scary £2,800 demand was reduced to £1,500. And just as importantly, they set up a repayment plan of just £30 a month. That is the real, tangible impact professional help can have. So here's the bottom line. If you're in a situation like Elowen's, if you're facing that interview letter, or even if you just have that nagging feeling in the back of your mind that your tax records and your benefit declarations don't quite match up, please don't try to navigate it all by yourself. The team here at My Tax Accountant is ready to help. We offer a free, completely confidential consultation to help you figure out where you stand and what your best options are. You can get in touch directly on WhatsApp or by phone at 07854 255 375, or you can just send an email to info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk. And for more practical guides just like this one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for your time, and remember, you're not alone in this.